long distance swimming, marathon swimming, and that is my big luck.
What's the furthest you've done?
The question is, what do I like to do for enjoyment?
Yeah.
Long distance swimming, marathon swimming, and the longest I've ever done 10 kilometers. Around 10 kilometers in open water. So that is my big luck.
I think that's more than I've walked. All right. Well, thank you, Vadim. Would you like me to set this up?
No, it's all good. It's all good. Good evening, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome. There are some folk who are still in the way, we would like to present to you another musical item. And Pavel Ostupski, the second one, right? Pavel Ostupski originally comes from Poland, but he's lived in Australia for many years now, and he's a very accomplished violinist. So Pavel.
Not professional.
Good afternoon, our precious guests. And at the beginning of this program, let's get acquainted. And I will explain to you what this program is all about. Because many of you may ask the question, what am I doing here? Well, first of all, let me ask you a question. Can I see the hands of those who came here because you received this color invitation? If you could raise your hand if you came here because you received the color invitation. All right. Wonderful. And who came here because a friend invited you? Because you learned about this from a friend. Okay, thank you. And is there anyone who came here because you saw our announcement about this program on social media? All right. Let me tell you a little bit about myself, and then I will take you into the first seminar. My name is Vadim Butov. I come to you from Melbourne, but my accent betrays me. I am an Australian by choice, not by birth. As far as my ethnicity, I'm a blend of multiple nationalities. On my father's side, I have Polish and Ukrainian roots. On my mother's side, I have Tatar and Turkish roots. So I'm a combination of 4 different nationalities in one person. Very multicultural. But again, when people ask me who I am, I'm Australian. And I love this wonderful, amazing country. And you'll ask me a question, what is this program all about? Well, we run these community programs as platforms of fellowship, building friendships, building relationships, and also bringing positive emotions, especially in the context of the last 2 years of crises. As you know, in 2020, 2021, and even this year, the whole world was struck by the first great pandemic in 100 years since the Hispanic flu of 1918. And remarkably, it was only less than 100 years that this pandemic now traveled around the world. The new virus, which affected billions of lives around the world. And here in Victoria, I think we were, in a sense, worst affected because we are the world champions in lockdowns. At the moment, Melbourne stands as, I think, if nothing else happens and if the pandemic keeps easing as it is, Melbourne will probably find its place in the Guinness Book of Records as the most locked down city in the world. And I think you here in lucky in Bendigo, you're lucky because you had a little bit more privileges, but I think some of these lockdowns hit you hard as well. And as you know, all the research in Australian government institutions shows that mental health issues, depression, loneliness, a lot of these factors have skyrocketed in the past 2 years. People were badly affected by this involuntary form, in quote marks, of imprisonment, or some people call it house arrest. It's tough. It's understandable. It was necessary to reduce the risk of people getting infected, getting sick, and even losing their lives. Everybody understands that it was a necessity before the vaccines came and other new treatments. But at the same time, it was tough. It was tough on the Australian population. It was tough on New Zealand. It was tough on any country on the globe where this virus penetrates. And on top of that, now there's another global shock. It's the armed conflict in Eastern Europe between Russia and Ukraine. And I will not talk about this a lot, but my relatives are directly affected by this conflict and who live far away. Maybe in the coming seminars, I'll share more about this with you, but I just didn't want to. I think you're hearing enough on the radio and on television about this dreadful human tragedy. And I just don't want to spend your time elaborating on this, but I'll tell you a little bit more in the coming seminars. So we planned 7 programs with you, 7 meetings this afternoon at 4 o'clock. Then we'll meet on Tuesday, Thursday next week, Saturday, and then we'll meet again on Tuesday, Thursday, and on the 21st of May, we are going to close this journey, these 7 programs. Okay, you want me to retreat? Okay, because we are also broadcasting this on social media. And we have an invisible audience. What we have here is what we call a visible audience, but we also have an invisible audience that will watch us live. And we are also placing the recordings of these programs on YouTube and other mediums of communication. And for those people who can't be here physically or in person, they'll be able to watch us at home. Well, also this afternoon you might have received 2 DVDs for you to watch at home, and also a very nice book which was written by my wife, Dr. Alawara Butov. She is a university lecturer. She has a PhD, and it's a very nice book called The Magician. Try it at home, you will not regret. You will really enjoy reading this book because it's somehow related to the material that I'm going to expose at these programs. Well, you will now ask me a question. What are we going to talk about in the upcoming 7 days? Let me tell you about my background. I used to lecture on ancient history in a number of colleges and universities in Europe, the United States, and even Australia. And of course, I'm not going to invite you to the world of history from the perspective of science or dig deep into some hidden facts. We're not going to take you on an academic journey. We will probably run our journey in the National Geographic style. We will try to make it nice, easy, cozy, but at the same time, you will receive a lot of information, a lot. And if you feel it's too heavy, please let me know, because I always treat my audience as a highly intellectual audience. I believe that every person has an enormous potential, mentally, socially, physically, and intellectually. You are all bright and brilliant people, and I believe that you will be able to absorb a lot, okay? And our program on Tuesday will take us to Mesopotamia. We will travel to Iraq, and we will look at the rivers Tigris and Euphrates, and we will have a journey to the ancient city of Babylon. Not far from where they had fighting for almost 2 decades, trying to extinguish or destroy the self-proclaimed state of ISIS, the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria. So we will travel to Iraq, and we will look at Babylon, and we will explore one of the most fascinating predictions of the future. And we will look at this from the viewpoint of history. Also, I realize that in our audience, you all come from various backgrounds. Some of you may have some kind of spiritual believing background. Others may not have that. You may represent various convictions, political, religious, social convictions, and we would like to create a neutral platform on which everybody will feel welcome, accepted, and respected. Okay, I will not try to impose the information I'm going to share with you on you. I will just share this information, and you just make conclusions for yourselves. All right, let's make it a nice and wonderful, friendly journey. I came here not to convince you, first and foremost. I came here to make friends, and I want you to feel welcome at these programs and feel that this is just another warm place, a community seminar free of charge, where everybody is welcome and everybody is appreciated. Okay. So this afternoon, my program is entitled Loneliness. Is there a way out? Loneliness. Is there a way out? By the way, the social surveys in the past 2 years in Victoria demonstrated that loneliness in the context of the pandemic became the #1 social issue in our state, in Melbourne and beyond. I'm not talking about the fact that mental health issues are great, and that psychologists, many good psychologists, have been booked out for months and months. It's impossible to get an interview with psychologists or psychiatrists because the mental health load is enormous. So the government is receiving great appeals from the community. Can you please spend more money because Victorians and Australians at large they need more help. They need a listening ear. They need someone who can help direct and guide. So there are many issues. We will try to address some of these issues looking at some ancient documents and the world of science. Loneliness, is there a way out? We know that in the modern world, many people, and can I ask you just to click the mouse on the slide and it will start working, okay? Because I think if some technical issues play, okay, now it's working perfectly. Thank you very much. We are lucky that we are not on an airplane, because if there's a mechanical issue on the plane, we're in trouble. But if there's a mechanical issue in a community educational program, we're still okay. We're still in our seats and we're not crashing, okay? So today, loneliness is a big thing. And people who reported loneliness the most in Melbourne and in Victoria were people with disability. Because many of them, many of us who were in lockdowns, we had an opportunity to go out for a walk. We had some movement and motion, but people with a disability who need assistance, who need care, they were largely immobilized, not being able to socialize, not being able to receive help and assistance from around them. So it's a big issue. The second group that reported loneliness in the past 2 years in Victoria is the elderly people. Even the residents in the nursing homes. Just can you imagine what happened in the nursing homes? I actually went and helped personally in the nursing homes to take care and feed the elderly people. So in Melbourne, I volunteered to help in one nursing home that was closed because of COVID. And I had to put on PPE and go from room to room and actually help feed with a spoon the elderly patients who all had COVID-19. And I spent a sizable amount of time, and remarkably, I never got COVID myself, because almost all of my other colleagues who helped me in this humanitarian work, they all had COVID, but I was the only exception. So I'm still waiting. I'll get it sooner or later. I'm prepared emotionally. Can you imagine going from door to door in the nursing home in Melbourne? And so I walk in, and there's a big sign that this patient or this lady, this gentleman has COVID. The person is coughing, high temperature, the person is not feeling well. I have full PPE, so I look, they look at me as if I came from Mars. You know, they look at the person, they can barely see my face because all they see is just my eyes, because I have a N95 mask, I have a visor, I have to, and trying to talk to them, it's very difficult. And they're sick, many have trouble swallowing. And as you take the spoon and try to feed them, it's a very tough job, all right? It's very difficult. And many of them told me, we're so lonely. We're so lonely because our relatives can't visit us. People who come here, all we see is just the protective equipment. We don't see human smiles, and we're so sick and lonely. Loneliness is a big factor, not only in the context of COVID, but generally speaking around the country. I once had a seminar like this in a nursing home not far from Newcastle. And the residents of the nursing home approached me and they said, you know, the retirement village just across the road. And they did a survey of the retirement village residents and asked them a question. What is the #1 problem you have? Yeah, you know what the report was? People filled out questionnaires. It was loneliness. The retirement village is designed to provide community, communication and fellowship, build relationships, build bridges. But at the same time, loneliness was still remaining a major factor. And we know that loneliness is not only prone to, is not only a feature of people who are elderly or disabled. We know that middle-aged people and even young people suffer from it as well. So we know that a lot of young people today are confessing that they feel so lonely in spite of the fact that we have social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, you name it. Loneliness is still a big factor amongst young people, and many of them are trying to fill the vacuum in their hearts with alcohol, drugs, and many other items that create a mirage, some visibility of happiness, and then disappointment follows. So loneliness, the brokenness of heart, the depression, guilt, fears of all sorts, lack of confidence in the future. All of these things are affecting us mentally, socially, physically, and even economically. Today, in the context of the global instability, people are asking the question, are we going to have enough money tomorrow to buy fuel for our cars? And yes, you see the prices for fuel are growing all the time. People are still talking, what will happen to Australia if energy prices go up, gas and electricity? Shall we be able to go to Coles and afford just a basic grocery basket and be able to feed ourselves? The young people are asking the question, will I be able to afford a place to live if the rates rise? There's a lot of instability today, and people are emotionally affected by this. Well, let me tell you that if you have a problem in the world of psychology or psychiatry, a psychologist and psychiatrist would be the first point of contact. They're the ones to be consulted. However, let me suggest to you an extra piece of information that will help all of us battle and successfully overcome the crises of modern times. I want to take you to a unique ancient document that lies at the foundation of the Australian culture. We know that Australia is a very cosmopolitan society with people from all sorts of backgrounds and walks of life. However, we will not be able to ignore the fact that the ancient Jewish, Hebrew and Greek Bible played an important role in the development of the Australian culture and identity. Even here in Bendigo, when I drove to the city for the first time, I opened my mouth and I could not shut it because the city is so beautiful. Because when I first drove to Bendigo, I thought, what is Bendigo? Well, yes, there was gold rush there one day, but when I drove to the city centre, it was like driving into the middle of Europe somewhere. Beautiful cathedrals, the buildings, the spectacular architecture of Bendigo downtown. For someone who is new, it just stuns you and freezes you for a moment. You live in a very nice place. Bendigo is a very charming city. And when you ask the question, where does that whole architecture come from? Well, it comes to us from our general historical European background, which formed and shaped the architecture and the construction of many Australian cities, our educational system, our government systems, and many of those systems were influenced greatly by the Jewish Christian culture of the Middle Ages. And today, of course, people ask the question, where do all these factors come from? Where do things that we consider as values come from to us today? At the beginning, let me take you to ancient Egypt. Of course, what do you see on the screen? The pyramids, okay? The only remaining wonder of the world. And as you know, the pyramid of Cheops that you see in the background used to be one of the largest buildings ever built in the ancient world, 146 meters high. The middle pyramid, 143 meters, and the third pyramid, 63 meters. We know that the Egyptians believed that the pharaohs were the children of gods, and that pharaohs should receive divine treatment. And they believed that it was the sun, this great thermonuclear reactor for us, that was the deity, and it gave life to all mankind. And therefore, the pyramids were built, according to ancient Egyptian writings, to resemble the sun and its influence on humans. So the top of the pyramid is the sun. The sides of the pyramid are the rays of the sun, the beams of light that go down. The humans walk on earth, on the bottom, but the pharaoh is buried in the middle. He's the child of the sun. Okay, that's the philosophy which stands behind the pyramids. This is, of course, the great what? Sphinx, 20 meters high and 53 meters long, half of the football field. The Egyptians believed that the Nile River was also divine. And they believed that in the east, where the sun rises, that you have life. In the west, where the sun sets down, is where life ends. For this reason, they always built the cities of the living on the east bank of the Nile River. And the cities of the dead, the pyramids, all more than 80 pyramids plus hundreds of tombs of ancient kings and nobles, were all built on the western bank of the River Nile. So there you had the cities of the living and you had the cities of the dead. And we know that the Egyptians believed in the existence of life after death. They believed that human beings have two souls. One is called Ka, K-A, and the other one is called Ba, B-A. Ka and Ba. The first soul, they believed, Ka, would leave your body when you die and travel to the underworld. And that's where it faces judgment and will either suffer or enjoy everlasting life. That's what Egyptians believed. The second soul, Ba, B-A, Ba, it remained around the place of burial. And therefore the Egyptians believed it was possible to communicate with that soul, Ba. And you could actually invite a medium who will use witchcraft and enable you the communication with that soul. So the common belief that most humans on earth believe in the life after death and also in the ability to call the spirits of the dead comes to us from ancient Egypt. I just want you to know that moment of history, and the best way to preserve the souls is to actually preserve the body, and that's hence the art of mummification or the preservation of ancient bodies. And of course a lot of wealth was taken into those graves. Great inscriptions, the masterpieces of the Egyptian art all evolved around life after death. This is the remains of the temple of Karnak, K-A-R-N-A-K, Karnak. On the top of these beams you can place literally thousands of people. Now you'll ask me a question, why is it that I'm taking you to Egypt first? Well, let me tell you why. In ancient Egypt, we find the existence of a Jewish nation. You probably know that the Jewish people spent hundreds of years in Egypt, and then they left with their general. And does anyone remember the name of that general? Moses, yes. You remember the great Frank Sinatra. Moses was in Egypt land, let my people go, right? And so he takes that nation to Palestine, to the so-called Promised Land, where they will live for thousands of years. And some skeptics said, well, is there any evidence that the Jewish people actually existed in Egypt and that their heroes actually lived? About 2 decades ago, a friend of mine, the American archaeologist Reddy Younker, doing diggings here in the Temple of Karnak, discovered the ancient document by Egyptians where they had a trade agreement and they had trade with King David. Have you ever heard about King David? The famous Star of David in the Jewish faith? Well, this was the first discovery in the world of archaeology that King David actually existed. Okay? Because before that, it was only the biblical Old Testament that mentioned David. But also, it was here in the Temple of Karnak where they found the mentioning of the Habiru, or the Hebrew people that used to live in ancient Egypt in those great times. Another great place, if we travel from Egypt to modern Syria, as you know, in Syria, they've had fighting for the last 2 decades. And in Syria, there is a place called Tel Mardika, where the archaeologists discovered the ancient city of Ebla. Ebla was one of the most ancient civilizations in history. It is here in Ebla where archaeologists found the collection of clay tablets. In fact, more than 20,000 tablets. In those days, people did not have paper like you and me. They had tablets, and they wrote their writings in cuneiform, in little dots and lines, and that's how we receive documents from them. They contain a lot of information: city archives, construction plans, trade agreements, and it is here in Ebla that for the first time in history that the names Abraham, Isaac, and also 2 cities, Sodom and Gomorrah, were first mentioned outside of the Old Testament of the Jewish Bible. So this unique discovery showed that Sodom and Gomorrah actually existed. They were not mythological cities once destroyed by divine powers from heaven. Sodom and Gomorrah actually are real cities of the ancient world. They're somewhere near the so-called Dead Sea, a big lake full of salt in the Middle East. It's called Dead Sea, but in reality it's not sea, it's only a lake. And the banks of this lake are 400 meters below the surface of sea, below sea level. And this is the deepest dry place on Earth today. And they found the remains and ruins of ancient cities, some of which are believed to be the remains of Sodom and Gomorrah. We cannot identify a number of cities destroyed by some inexplicable fire were found. At the moment, archaeologists are digging and looking for an opportunity to find documents, but there is no doubt that Sodom and Gomorrah existed and they were in the Dead Sea area. Also, it is here at Dead Sea that they found the so-called Dead Sea Scrolls, and these are the most ancient manuscripts of the Old Testament. And not far from these places, in the Sinai Desert, they found the most ancient full manuscript of the New Testament in St. Catherine's Monastery near Mount Sinai. This is Mount Sinai, the foot of Mount Sinai, where Moses went and received 10 commandments from who he believed was God. And at the foot you find St. Catherine's Monastery. And it was here that Robert Tischendorf, an English explorer, found the most ancient manuscript of the New Testament. So far, we have discovered more than 2,000 manuscripts of the Old Testament and more than 20,000 manuscripts of the New Testament. The careful research of these manuscripts shows that the ancient writings of the Old Testament, the Jewish Bible, and the New Testament, the Christian Bible, came to us unchanged. They were never altered. Moreover, it is in ancient texts that you find some things that were affirmed by scientists thousands of years later. For instance, this writing of Job is 3,500 years old. And it is here in this text where it says that God hangs the earth upon what? Upon nothing. Now, you know, in ancient times, people believed that the earth was either sitting on a great turtle. The Chinese people believed that it was sitting on a great dragon. Some Europeans believed that the earth was flat and was sitting on 3 whales. There were all sorts of concepts. The Bible was the only book in the ancient world that said that the earth is sitting on what? Upon nothing. So it's a unique document, and modern science affirms its statements. For another text, again, 3,500 years old. When he gave to the wind its what? Its weight. If you go to Leonardo da Vinci or Giordano Bruno or Galileo or many other scientists in the Middle Ages, they all believed that the atmosphere has no weight. It's only in the last 200 years that scientists finally came to the conclusion that the air, which consists of nitrogen, oxygen, carbon dioxide, and multiple inertial gases, all of these, all the air has weight, and it's because it has weight that we can actually fly. Well, 3,500 years ago, the ancient text affirmed that. But today we're talking about loneliness. This is a little side step in our presentation to the Middle East and to the world of archaeology. We'll be coming back every time we meet here. Every time we meet, we will travel to the world of archaeology. We'll look at history, and you will see a lot of unique connections between our time and their time. But now let me take you for a few moments to the desert. Let's go to the Sinai Desert in Egypt. It was here that 4,000 years ago, there was a lonely traveler in the desert by the name of Jacob. He left his home and he ran away. He deceived his brother Esau, and by deceit, by lying to his fathers, he secured a blessing which meant a loss to the ancient people. And now he was abandoned by everyone, without anything, lonely, lost in the desert. So the evening came, and the tired traveller fell asleep. And at night he heard strange words. I am with you, and will watch over you wherever you go, and I will bring you back to this land. I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. So in his dream at night, he heard a voice with assurance that someone is going to take care of him. The Old Testament says, when Jacob awoke from his sleep, he thought, surely the Lord is in this place, and I was not aware of it. So those of us who read this text, I may say, but well, that's ancient people. Ancient people believed in God, and they believed that all the good things that happen to them in their lives come from a divine being. But what about us in the 21st century? Because nowadays we have science in our hands. We have astronomy, physics, chemistry, biology, mathematics. We've explored so much. In fact, every day scientists publish 2,000 pages worth of new discoveries. In fact, in the past 25 years, mankind accumulated more knowledge than in the previous 4,000 years of known literacy. Just think about it. In the past 25 years, we've accumulated more knowledge than in the previous 4,000 years of known literacy. So we are today. We don't have knowledge deficit. We have knowledge overload. And the first question that comes to mind is that, can a modern man do what? Believe in God. Can we believe in Him? Because we don't see Him, how can we believe in Him? Well, let me give you a suggestion. In the Jewish Old Testament, it says, lift up your eyes and look to the heavens. Who created all these? He who brings out the starry host one by one and calls forth each of them by name. Because of His great power and mighty strength, not one of them is missing. And another statement, those of you who've been around here for a while might remember the first flight of the American spacecraft Apollo to the moon. You remember, before the Americans put the first man on the moon, they launched a flight that would actually fly around the moon to have a look at the backside, at the dark side. And when the American astronauts were flying around, and the American media broadcast what was happening on board of the spacecraft live to the free world, an American astronaut opened his Bible while in space. And to the global audience, to a shocked audience, he read the words, in the beginning, God created what? The heavens and the earth. By the way, in his interview with CNN, the first astronaut who set his foot on the moon by the name of Armstrong, you probably remember that. And so Armstrong actually confessed that he believed that the universe did not come here by a blind chance, that it actually was created. So let's travel with the astronauts to space. Let's go to the International Space Station and have a look at what is happening up in the skies. Well, thousands of years later, thousands of years ago, the ancient times, in the days of the Greek historian Herodotus, believed that there were little more than 5,000 stars in the sky. And I believe that many of you, when you were little children and you approached your mom and dad walking late in the evening, maybe on a faraway outback farm, and when you looked at the beautiful skies, you'll ask them, Mom, Dad, how many stars are there? When, as a child, I received a map of the stars, of all the constellations, I actually tried to count the number of stars on that map, and that failed. I counted and counted and got lost and counted and counted. It was very, very difficult. Well, modern astronomy tells us that it's virtually impossible to count all the stars. And in the Old Testament of the Jewish text, it says that the stars are as countless as the stars in the sky. A friend of mine once tried to put to experiment the statement from a famous American astronomer who said that if you count all the grains of sand on all the beaches of the world, you will receive the number of stars in the sky. So a friend of mine, he was from Estonia, from Tallinn, from the Baltic countries. Estonians, Finnish people are known to be very patient people. So he was a very patient man. And so he took a little cup and he started, the cup had 100 millimeters in it. And he started putting little grains of sand and counting and then writing the number down. And he counted and counted 1 hour a day for 6 months. In 6 months, he filled the cup only by 10%. And even his Estonian patience could not last. He washed the cup and gave up. Just can you imagine on the beautiful beaches of Australia, the best beaches in the world, how many grains of sand do you have? And multiply all the little grains of sand and you will receive the number of stars in the known universe. Here you will see these bright spots. In fact, each bright spot is not a star, it's a galaxy. And in that galaxy you find more than 1 billion stars. So there are many, many stars in the universe. And they are separated by gigantic distances. We know that the sun is far away from us, but another star called Alpha Centauri or Proxima Centauri, it's even further away. Look at the way that the words of Job recorded 3,500 years ago in the Old Testament. Is not God in the heights of heaven? And see how lofty are the highest stars. How far away are they from us? Well, the sun is our nearest neighbor, and it gives us a lot of warmth and skin cancers to Australians. But if you find our next door neighbor, it's the star called Proxima Centauri or Alpha Centauri. The distance to the star is just 41.6 trillion kilometers. And light takes 4 years to travel from that star and reach us. You can, of course, choose another option, a slow option, and take the modern spacecraft and accelerate to the highest available speed of 57,000 kilometers an hour. It will take you just 120,000 years. Just think about it. 120,000 years to reach Proxima Centauri, our nearest neighbor. Just think about the cosmic distances. There are many stars in the universe, and they are separated by great distances, and many of them travel with very high speed. In fact, the Milky Way system, the galaxy in which you and I live, travels in space with a speed of 110,000 kilometers an hour. Just think about this speed. If you and I hit the Hume Highway to Sydney, what's the speed limit on Hume Highway? It's 110. Multiply that by 1,000. 110,000 kilometers an hour is the speed with which Milky Way travels in space. So there are many stars. They're separated by great distances. They travel with a lot of with great speeds, and yet they don't collide. They exist in perfect harmony, and they're subject to the laws of heavenly mechanics. There's perfect order in the universe. Look at the words of ancient psalmists who said, "The heavens declare the glory of God, the skies proclaim the work of his hands. Day after day they pour forth speech, night after night they reveal knowledge." And look at these words. He is before all things, and in him all things hold together. Now let's think about the origin of the universe. In the Middle Ages, there was a great historian and philosopher who lived in Italy, and his name was Thomas Aquinas. He is considered to be the most prominent philosopher of the Middle Ages. Thomas Aquinas. Thomas Aquinas worked out the so-called cosmological proof of God. What does it mean? All things in the world have their beginning. So let's go all the way to the beginning of time. And we know that because of Albert Einstein and his law about the theory of relativity, we know that the universe has a beginning. Today, any good scientist, any physicist and astronomer will tell you, the universe has a beginning. And many physicists give you the name Big Explosion or Big what? Big Bang. Have you heard about the Big Bang theory? Could I see the hands of those who heard about the Big Bang? All right, many of you, all right. Boys, have you ever heard about the Big Bang? All right, you heard, all right. The Big Bang, so it just was a Big Bang. And the common consent among physicists is that once upon a time the universe did not exist. Maybe it was just a little dot somewhere. And suddenly there was this giant explosion of energy. And as a result of this explosion, matter appeared, atoms, protons, neutrons, electrons, matter was formed, and the universe came into existence. About 15 billion years ago, 15 billion years ago. And of course, the question arises, when this giant explosion happened, did it come about by itself as the result of a blind chance? Or was it something else? Now, we know that mining is a big place in Australian industry. If you take a piece of dynamite and say, take a million parts of the Boeing 737 airplane, and let's take it to Avalon Airport, where Qantas used to have its maintenance base for decades. Put all the parts on the runway, put dynamite in the middle, and then detonate. All the parts explode and fly in the air. In a moment, on the runway, right in front of you, stands the brand new 737 Boeing, ready to fly, painted in Qantas livery. Is it possible to believe that? Well, we know that explosions destroy. Only controlled explosions produce. Let me repeat myself. Uncontrolled explosions destroy. Just look at the news at what happens in the city of Mariupol in Ukraine. It's a city that had a lot of uncontrolled explosions. Buildings destroyed, human lives destroyed. That's what happens when explosions happen. But a controlled explosion can be used for mining purposes, to get coal, iron ore, gold. Controlled explosion may be used to carve through a big mountain and build a highway. So the engineering thought may use an explosion to produce something orderly and valuable. Now, this orderly universe, could it come about by a blind chance or a blind random explosion? Well, the conclusion is, because we have so much order and so many laws of universal mechanics in the universe, it is impossible to believe that the Big Bang was unintelligent and that some supernatural power and supermind was not involved behind it. And it is for this reason that the great medieval artists and scientists, Leonardo da Vinci, could I see the hands of those who heard about Leonardo da Vinci? Everyone. He's one of the most well-known artists in the history of mankind. Look at his masterpieces, the Lord Supper, or Mona Lisa, and many others. Leonardo da Vinci was a scientist. And once he walked into the Roman Catholic Church in his town and started praying, and the priest heard him say these words, "Oh my Lord, first engine." The priest was a little bit upset that Leonardo da Vinci, the scientist, was calling God the first engine. And because he did not recite prayers from the prayer book, he just called God the first engine. And the priest, after that Sunday service, approached Leonardo and asked him, why did he pray this prayer? And Leonardo explained, I believe that the universe has that first engine, that first mastermind, that first great power that originated everything. There must be a God, and I can prove that, said Leonardo. But let's go down from the sky to Earth, to this beautiful planet. Now, this is one of our great Australian beaches in Queensland. And here we have the beach. And what do you see here? The footprints. Now, the footprints tell you and me that someone was here. A human or an animal, the footprints are left by someone. Now, if you and I look at the world of nature around us, we can see a lot of footprints of the divine. For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, so that people are without excuse. In fact, the world of nature that surrounds you and me, the world of flora, the world of plants or fauna, the world of animals, it's like a book that has a lot of evidence, a lot of pieces of evidence that the Creator is there. First of all, of course, the world of nature is very beautiful. Look at the colors, and the sounds, and the smells of nature. Nature is so fascinating. It's so wondrous. Everything in this world, from the highest mountain to the smallest drop of dew, testifies about a unique artist. In the ancient Jewish Bible, in the Old Testament, it says, glorious and majestic are his deeds, and his righteousness endures forever. The ancient authors said that all that we see in the world of nature around us is the handiwork of the Creator. Take the little snowflakes, they're marvels of geometry. Then you will not find on Earth two snowflakes that could be twins. They're all different. And snowflakes provide the preservation of life in the cold parts of the world. In fact, I grew up as a kid in one of the world's coldest parts. When people ask me, where do I come from, I tell them I'm Siberian by birth, but Australian by choice. I grew up in an area with 9 months of winter and 3 months of no winter. 9 months of negative temperatures and 3 months of small positive temperatures. It's because my ancestors were all exiled to Siberia. I'm a child of the convicts. But when I came to Australia, I discovered that this is also a little bit like Siberia because it's also a convict land. But very beautiful, very nice. In Australia, it's just the best people you can find anywhere on Earth. The eucalyptus trees raise water to more than 100 meters. This great pumps. Now, the question is, just recently, about a year ago, there was this great conference talking about climate change. And the world leaders are pursuing the zero carbon goals by 2050. They want to eliminate the exhaust. They want to increase their content of oxygen and reduce the amount of carbon dioxide. Now, where do we get our oxygen from? We get our oxygen from the world of plants. And we know that it is a small reaction called photosynthesis. Photosynthesis that produces oxygen. In fact, it's a combination of 70 biochemical reactions. And that happens in green plants. And plants absorb carbon dioxide and release oxygen. And that gives us breath and that gives us food. Life exists because of photosynthesis. If we eliminate photosynthesis, life will cease to exist. Life will be no more. And about 30 years ago, an international group of biologists and other scholars decided to reproduce photosynthesis because all of those 70 reactions are known. And they try to combine them into one reaction, which will resemble what happens in the green plants. In fact, in the desert, they built a large laboratory with lots of sunshine to reproduce photosynthesis. That experiment called the Sum of Life. In fact, it happened in the country which is called Uzbekistan today, in Middle Asia, in the desert of Karakum. That experiment went for 10 years. For 10 years, the best minds in the world were trying to reproduce photosynthesis and failed. The experiment was closed and no success was achieved. And the question is, if the best minds, best academics, who know all the formulas, who know the chemistry, who know the biology of what is happening, could not artificially, in 10 years, combine all the molecules and elements into one reaction, how could photosynthesis come to being by itself, out of vacuum, in the complete absence of mind? How could nothing create something? It's illogical. It contradicts human logic and any philosophical pattern of thinking. And we know that this planet has many things to tell us. For instance, once I met with one physicist who told me that for 3 decades he was an atheist, but then he came to, by exploring the world of the universe, he came to believe that there must be a creator. And he's got a PhD in physics, and he used to teach for many years in the Australian National University in Canberra. And he told me, if you look at this planet, and you bring it close to the sun, say by 5% of our distance, you know what will happen? I said, no, I don't. He said, we will all burn. The earth will become desert. Yeah, and then he says, let's move away this planet from the sun by 5% of its distance. You know what will happen? I said, no. He said, we will all become an ice desert. He says the distance of this planet from the sun is so well calculated, precisely calculated, that any deviation from our distance from the sun will result in the death of life. Just think about it. Even when the Earth axle turns and we travel around this planet, around the sun, we have seasons: spring, summer, autumn, and winter. A little deviation, little distance from the sun, the reduction or the increase of the sunlight on the Earth's surfaces results in cold and hot seasons. Our distance of this planet is calculated with mathematical precision. So it also betrays that there must be something behind this world. He did not create this earth to be empty, but formed it to be what? To be inhabited. And just look at the world of animals around us. Look at the birds. And, you know, for 2 years, many of us could not fly because of the pandemic, and the airports that would carry people only in case of emergency or having government exceptions. And I enjoy flying. And I enjoy flying the Australian Airlines because they're beautiful. Australian pilots are the best in the world. So can you imagine that you are in Melbourne Airport and you board, say, the Virgin Australia flight, and then you hear the announcement on the speakers. Oh, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am the father of the pilot. Now, my son has COVID-19 and he had to self-isolate for 14 days, but so I'm going to fly the plane in his place today. And by the way, his co-pilot is a close contact, and he is not able to come on board as well because as a close contact, he has to isolate as well. But don't worry, my friends, I'm triple vaccinated, and I'm going to fly you very well to Sydney today. By the way, I just finished reading the first chapter of the book on how to fly this plane. So I'm going to do the take-off, and as we fly to Sydney, I'll read the rest of the book, and I'll be able to land you in Sydney. If that happens to you, what would be your first reaction? I think you would run for life out of that plane before the doors are shut and the plane starts taxiing for takeoff. You want to fly with a professional. You want to fly with someone who is as safe as an Australian pilot. Well, my friends, the birds, they don't go to the pilots' schools. They never go study navigation. But they fly around the world. They can fly all the way as long as 38,000 kilometers. There are some birds that were tracked by radar that flew around this planet. They navigate around the world often better than the best human pilots. Who taught the birds the secrets of navigation? Now, as you know, the state of Victoria is also known by its honey. And in fact, in Australia and in New Zealand, you've got a lot of different sorts of honey, great honey. Now the bees, when they produce honey, they have to travel to the fields, they have to collect nectar, and they have to bring it back to the beehive, and then they create honey. Now the bees use modes of communication which are called belly dance. By the way, the term belly dance, you know, the belly dance, comes to us from the beehive because the bees, they dance with their bellies. And one American scientist researched the bees for more than 4 decades and came to the conclusion that bees use high-level mathematics to pass the distance of their flight. In fact, they use logarithms. Logarithms. Now, I know that there's a mathematics lecture in the audience. Logarithms are normally not studied in the first grade school. They're normally studied in the last grades of school, in the high school, in grades 10 to 12. Now, the bees are using logarithms to interpret distances and calculate their flights. And it's a proven fact that bees have some knowledge of high mathematics. The question, where does that knowledge come from? And we may ask a lot of questions to many other great animals around the world. We just don't have time. But the question that was asked 3,500 years ago in the book of Jude is, ask the animals and they will teach you. The birds in the sky, they will tell you. Let the fish in the sea inform you. Which of all these does not know that the hand of the Lord has done this? But wait a minute, many of you ask, wait a minute. Well, let's go to Melbourne Zoo and talk to one more creature, and that is a monkey. By the way, this is a postcard. How do you like receiving this postcard one day, say for Christmas? To my dear grandchildren, from Grandma. Did we come down from the trees? Yes, we look like monkeys. We have 5 fingers and they have 5 fingers. And we have 5 toes and they have 5 toes. And our behaviors are very similar. And chimpanzees, gorillas, and orangutans are called human-like apes. And the theory of evolution promotes that monkeys and humans, they have a common evolutionary origin. Now, is it true that this indeed is our distant grandma? Well, let me suggest to you that today the theory of evolution is receiving a lot of challenges. And that's because of the world of genetics. Now, you and I look like our parents and like our relatives because of our common genes. We're genetically predisposed to look like them. And the genes, they relate the hereditary information. Well, the most recent research in the world of genetics shows that if you make changes in the world of genes, you will either get a deformity, or you will die. And you have an array of genetic diseases. Have you ever heard about the Down syndrome? The Down syndrome. A poor child has serious developmental deficiencies and his family will suffer for many years. Or the so-called Hunter syndrome. Hunter syndrome. The Hunter syndrome means that the child will grow, but then will start developing a lot of problems and become almost an old man within 10 years. And the annual treatment of the Hunter syndrome, just to help the child survive, will be roughly about $1 million Australian dollars a year. That's how expensive it is, just to treat the symptoms of this genetic disease. And we can talk more about these things, but when Charles Darwin suggested the theory of evolution, he did not have on his hand a lot of things that you and I have. He did not have an electronic microscope to look into the human cell or any cell and see that a cell is actually much more complicated than the city of Melbourne. He did not have access to the genes to discover that microevolution is possible. That means you can change the color of hair, you can change the color of skin, you can change the appearance, but humans will always remain humans, and monkeys will always remain monkeys. I believe in evolution, my friends. I believe that there is microevolution. There may be a lot of changes in the world of plants, animals, and humans, but I do not believe in macroevolution. Macroevolution means that a monkey actually can become someone else. At the moment, no scientist in the past 100 years have ever observed, no scientists have ever observed the transition of one species to another species, or any species being halfway to another species. So the microevolution is observable, but macroevolution is not. And therefore, I don't believe that you and I came from monkeys. Moreover, the bones that were found around the world, there are so few that they just don't have enough information to believe that we came down from the trees. Many bones were attributed to monkeys now, not to humans. And therefore, the discoveries of those bones are not a very strong argument to support that you and I came down from the trees. The Australopithecus, the Australian man, as now has been proven, is a giant orangutan, not a human being. The Nebraska man from America, there was a tooth found in 1961 in the state of Nebraska, and they thought it was a tooth of an ancient human being. Well, later the genetic research showed that the tooth actually belonged to a wild American pig, not to a monkey. And the Nebraska man immediately jumped out of the textbooks. The Piltdown man found in England in 1912 happened to be a fake created by the great novelist Arthur Conan Doyle, who took the bones of the orangutan and the jaw of a woman and painted them and put them in the ground, and people thought it was the most ancient man who ever lived. It's in 1952 that it was discovered that the Piltdown man was only a fake. And therefore, the bones are not a very strong argument to support that we came down from apes, no. And I have so much information, but it was promised that we will finish. Our programs will not last more than 120 minutes. So our plane is about to land. Just give me 6 more minutes and we'll be there. Ah, Sovereign Lord, you have made the heavens and the earth by your great power and outstretched arm. Nothing is what? Too hard for you. This great creator, according to the ancient book penned by the Jewish writers in the Middle East 2,000 years ago, this great creator is not just some kind of a distant absolute, some cosmic power, some mastermind far, far away. He is omnipotent. He can do all things. Moreover, he is omniscient. He knows all things. Look at the words from the New Testament. And even the very hairs of your head are all what? Numbered. Now, every time I go to my hairdresser, I'm telling I'm growing bald because I feel the baldness is coming here and here, and I don't want you to see what's happening on the back of my head. But whenever I come to her, I tell her, well, in the New Testament says there is a creator who can number the hairs of my head. Now I can actually number my hairs myself too, because I'm losing them all the time. Well, young people enjoy use. But he knows all things, whether you have hair or you don't have anything. He knows everything about you. He knows all things. He is omnipresent. He feels with himself the entire universe and is invisibly present everywhere. When I consider your heavens, these are the words from the Jewish writings of the Old Testament, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars which you have set in place. What is mankind that you are mindful of them? Human beings that you care for them. As you know, in the past 100 years, because of the theory of evolution, a lot of things happened to humankind. And sometimes the theory of evolution was taken to its extreme. And let me give you just 2 examples. One extreme was the birth and rise of the communist era in the former Soviet Union. Communists believed that the theory of evolution is the only plausible explanation of life. And therefore humans are the descendants of ape-like beings and God does not exist. And they made this concept a belief of everyone. And in 1930s, my great-grandfathers ended up in Siberia because of that very reason. Because anyone who disagreed with that concept had to be either sent away or destroyed. And it is in the country, in the frozen land of Siberia, where you still find 20 million graves. Just think about it, 20 million graves. I once drove my car on the East Siberian Tract. It's in the Magadan area, and in that area there are 2,000 kilometers of road and 2,500 kilometers of road, paved road, and there are 2 million people buried in that road alone. Just think about it. Almost for every meter of the road, there's a human being. What happened? People who disagreed in the world of politics, belief, socially, economically, or for any other reason, were sent there to build the road. And that road was supposed to carry gold, diamonds, and the mining treasures of the former Soviet Union. And in that road alone, 2 million people died by building the road. So they did not bury them on the side. They just put them in the road and put pavement on top and continued the construction. A horrible tragedy, 20 million lives. Let me give you another example, Nazism. Nazism that happened in Germany in the middle of the 20th century also took the theory of evolution in its extreme. And Friedrich Nietzsche, or Nietzsche, the great German philosopher, worked out a concept based on the theory of evolution that the power in the world should belong to the strongest people. And if you're strong, you are right. So the truth is in power, and the power is in truth. So everyone who is powerful, he's right. So the theory of evolution says it's the survival of the fittest. The most powerful survive, and therefore the fittest humans should survive. The greatest loss of life in human history. I wish it never happens again, but the most modest count of the casualties of the Second World War is 55 million lives. Just think about it. 55 million people, double the population of Australia, the greatest loss of life in the history of mankind. So the theory of evolution, if you take it to its extreme, and if you eliminate the spiritual component from human life, you may end up in the destruction of life. When I consider your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars which you have set in place, what is mankind that you're mindful of them? Human beings that you care for them. So do not be afraid. These are, by the way, the words of the greatest Jewish rabbi, Jesus. He said, "You are worth more than what? Many sparrows." Human beings, according to this Jewish rabbi, are not machines. We are not highly organized animals. A man, though well behaved, is not at best a monkey shaped. We are children of the Creator. We did not come down from the trees, but we have supernatural origin. And we'll talk more about the origin of life and different theories about it in the coming lectures. But human beings are valuable. Human beings are precious. And every human being, one human being, man, woman, old man, old woman, child, or the son and daughter, humans, they're just one human being is worth more than all the gold and all the treasures in the world, all the animals in the world, or the entire universe. You are precious. This ancient book elevates humans and puts them on the highest possible pedestal. And also this ancient book, 2,000 years ago, proclaims this unique message. For God is, what can you read it for me? Love. He's not only omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent, he is loving. He loves his creation and he's interested in his creation. And of course, many of you will ask me a question. But wait a minute, Vadim, if God is love, why is it that there are innocent children getting killed in Ukraine today? Or and around the world? Have you ever asked yourselves this question? If God exists, why is there so much suffering? Who would like to know the answer to that question? Could I see the hands of those who like? Yeah, many of us. But I won't give you this answer this afternoon. I'll give you this answer next Thursday, all right? We'll talk about this in our program, Visitors from Other Worlds. The Visitors from Other Worlds next Thursday at 7 p.m. here in this hall. Come and bring your friends. But today, let me conclude with these words. Now, acquaint yourself with him and be at peace, thereby good will come to you. So if humans on earth get acquainted with this Creator, they will obtain peace. And let me suggest to you that the knowledge of the Creator and your personal acquaintance with him can actually bring into your life an entirely new horizon of relationships. Of course, if you have a mental problem, you go to a psychiatrist. If you have a psychological problem, you go to a psychologist. If you have financial issues, you go to a Centrelink. If you have relational problems, you try to build friendships around you with humans. But let me suggest to you that if you want to find meaning of life, there's one more to get acquainted with, and that is the Creator of the world, whom you can come anytime, day or night, and he will always accept, always receive, always forgive, and liberate from anxiety from fears, from guilt, from loneliness. And then the sunset sometimes will not seem depressing, and you will see new horizons of meaning and new scope of living and meaning of life. And you will be happy. You will be happy. Would you like to be happy? Could I see the hands of those who would like to be happy in their lives? Well, it's a basic and simple question. I want to be happy. And I want you to be happy and realized. If you don't mind, before we conclude the program this afternoon, I want to, because once upon a time I was an atheist, but now I'm a believer, I want to say a little prayer that the Creator of the universe will take care of. God, the Creator of the universe, I'm asking that you will bring happiness to the lives of all those who are present in this auditorium this afternoon. And also bring happiness and peace to our precious land, the wonderland of Australia. Amen. Well, I think we're coming to the conclusion of our program, and Daniel, our MC, will make some concluding remarks, and I will see you on Tuesday, 7 p.m. on Tuesday. Come and bring your friends. We're going to travel to Babylon and look at one of the most fascinating predictions that concerns you and me today. Thank you very much for being here.